Hello everybody and welcome to Planet FPL, the world where everything revolves around Fantasy Premier League. My name's Suj.
Straighten my mic. My name is James. Hello.
This week is the week where everything revolves around Fantasy Premier League, and it's People's Poll Day, James, which means the poll that we put out, unlike some weeks, was very FPL focused in terms of the options that we gave people to discuss. A surprising winner, not a winner I would have picked, but give us the runners and riders. And let's talk about maybe
and
even
it's
why
not often the people's poll vote surprises, but I think actually when we discuss this, it's very understandable why. So yes, look, we're heading into Friday's FPL deadline. We're circa 3 and a bit days away from deadline. I put out choices for us to discuss in more detail. 4.5 defenders, 5.0 defenders, 5.0 midfielders, or 5.5 midfielders. I'm pretty sure those were the choices.
Yeah.
I think me and Suj both thought 4.5 defenders would win. But I think it helpful. I'd said that I'd very much overlooked that price point, I think. And there are good options there. We spoke a lot about Timothy Castagna yesterday, for example. A few people said, why didn't you speak about this 5.0 defender? I'm like, it's coming right now. That's why the vote went out prior to yesterday's main podcast, so we could leave a few bits out to do a deeper dive in detail now on people like Doherty, Zinchenko, Cash, Dean, etc. Trippier. We're going to talk about all of them now.
Cool. Well, the reason I suppose I'm not bothered about 5 million defenders has not been in my squad structure from even the beginning. I might have flirted a little bit with a Trippier or something like that, but generally, I'm not looking at getting a 5 million defender in for the start. So I'm not really looking at that much detail. But when we go through them, there are a few names there that have the potential to score 130, 150 points this season. And that's decent.
I think there's a couple that have the potential to exceed that.
And we don't want to overlook them because in a season where we're looking at big at the back, that saving from a 6.5 or 7 million defender, if you fancy cheaping out on Robertson or something like that, might be worth it if you're trying to pump more money further forward later on.
The reality is probably circa 70-80% of defenders are underpriced in the game across the board. So as well as we can go, look, Trent's underpriced at 7.5. There's a few of these 5s who should be 5.5. There's a case to say one or two of them should even maybe be 6. Just interested to get your thoughts before we look at anything here. If I said right now you've got to go with one, who would it be?
Trippier.
Okay, it's fine.
Trippier, I think, yeah.
He's certainly in the running, and he's one of the most popular, as you can see, in ownership numbers at the moment. What we want to do firstly is just give an overview of everyone at the price point and eliminate a load of players from our thoughts. So there's 4 players we can obviously eliminate straight away because they are not going to be available in game week 1. That is Naif Aged, very unfortunately at yourself, Suj. Nelson Semedo, your cousin, Nico. I don't know what's going on there, but he's not available. Sergi Canos at Brentford is nearing a return, but won't be available game week 1. Stuart Dallas is unlikely to play before 2023. Those 4 are ruled out. There are 3 other players who I think could be interesting assets and maybe during the season, but I don't think you can pick them game week 1. Those are Ibrahima Konate, and we should say we don't have the prognosis of the injury picked up on Sunday at the moment, but certainly enough doubt that you're not going to use one of your Liverpool spots on him at the moment. Kieran Tierney is obviously very close as well. We don't expect him to start game week 1 at the moment. Definitely one to keep an eye on. And Ben Davies did travel to Israel with Tottenham on Saturday, but didn't get on the pitch. So I really don't know where that leaves us. I wouldn't be surprised if Davies is in the lineup on Saturday against Southampton, but there are alternatives at the same price point. That is not going to be your choice right now, is Ben Davies.
Yeah,
it's just too much doubt.
Yep.
There are another load of players who I would eliminate in terms of our correspondents do not believe that they will start in game week 1.
Sure.
Tomorrow I'm going to put out a big thread with the guys' predictions, all 20, on Twitter. Their starting lineup predictions for all 20 teams. That will go out on Twitter tomorrow.
Please appreciate they're predicted. people.
Oh, don't worry. That's very fucking clear in the tweet.
Capital
That
letters.
predicted. I even say in the tweet, like, you can think for yourselves.
Yeah.
It's drafted. It's ready. It's going to go out tomorrow. But I'm giving them a chance in case they decide to change their mind on anything. At Chelsea...
Well, some of them, the players might not be there at the weekend with transfer activity that's hotting
there's
up.
that as well. We're trying to leave it close enough, but we also want to put it out before the team knows.
Of course, yeah.
You've got Nathaniel Chalobah and Malang Sarr at Chelsea. Chalobah, I think, again, is one very much keep an eye on. His points per game was very good last season when he got in the team. It's difficult to envisage him starting at the moment. In any case, again, there is enough risk there at the moment that we just would not go there.
Not for 5.
Malang Sarr has been subject to a bid from Fulham, but I know Fabrizio, here we go, Romano tweeted last night saying that he believed he might be going to somewhere in Ligue 1, actually.
Okay.
There's a few clubs in France doing a bit of business at the moment. Emerson Royal at Tottenham. He's probably not your pick anyway. He's the most defensive of the 6 players that Tottenham can play at wing-back. Arguably the one that should have really possibly come in at 4.5 in comparison to the others, actually.
Yep.
He could start. I've spoken before about, I think he could play at Chelsea, for example, in game week 2, but you're not going to consider him. Same story for Clement Longley. I've had a few people ask me about Longley for drafts. I would assume at this moment that he will be understudy to Ben Davis, would be my best guess. And I doubt if he'll even start game week 1. Yep. Sanchez and Longley both played 45 minutes on Saturday.
Is he any good?
Against Roma.
He's all right.
It's difficult to say. Do you know what? He had one great run in the second half where he came all the way out, ended up in the left wing position and crossed it in, and Romero was on the end of the cross. And this was open play, by the way. It wasn't like they stayed up from a corner. Yeah. You're going to get more of that from Tottenham this year, which is really, really interesting.
Longley.
There's 3 players at Manchester United who I know at the moment Gary Robinson doesn't think will start. It doesn't mean that they won't, but doesn't think they will. The 2 left-backs, Luke Shaw and Alex Telles. We think at the moment Malacia may get the nod, and he's 4.5. Rafael Varane, I don't think we'd pick at the moment either. Lindelof and Maguire played at the weekend. We think that's probably the starting choice, but that could very quickly become Varane and Martinez, for example. Connor Cody at Wolves.
I mean, what did Martinez come in at? Or he's
4.5.
Wow, okay. I mean, that's once he breaks into the team, that's going to be a bit better.
But then would you even pick him over Dalot?
I wouldn't pick either.
No, well, maybe not. I think Dalot is a reasonable pick. I think he's one at 4.5 ready to consider. But that's what I'm saying. Even if Martinez was going to start, are you picking him over Dalot? Actually, no, you're not. So there's a case to say the United 5.0s. We'll talk about Harry Maguire a little bit more. Can just be eliminated, I think. Connor Cody at Wolves. Bradley spoke to us last week and said that he thought, obviously, we're pretty sure they're going to go to a back 4. He thinks Kilman and Collins will be the 2 that are first choice. It must be said there was a rumoured knock for Max Kilman at the weekend. Again, we don't have any information on that, but again, there are 4.5 Wolves guys as well. We were not starting with Connor Cody, surely. Although his points per game was freakishly good last year and he actually did score a few goals, please don't start with Connor Cody. That's nailed on that he's going to score. He's not just going to score. He's going to open the season. He'll be the first goal scorer of the season after Palace and Arsenal draw 0-0 and Liverpool draw 0-0 at Fulham. Not. There are more players we can eliminate, I think, from our thinking because of concerns about rotation or because there are cheaper assets within the same club even.
Or transfer rumours.
Or transfer rumours we'll come on to. So, Nathan Ake. I think you're not going to start with. No. I don't think. Potentially interesting, like if you were in a position where Laporte and Stones, for example, were both going to be out for an extended period, you'd look at that and go, that's interesting. He's a big threat from set pieces and stuff, and he's obviously playing for one of the best teams in the league. But I think we'd rule Nathan Ake out. I don't see anyone would be picking him over Kyle Walker at the moment, and I think nobody would currently have Ake in their first choice City team, so he's not a choice. Maguire, I've already mentioned. I think that are you going to pick Maguire at 0.5 more than Dalot?
No.
You're not.
No.
You're not. No. So we think at the moment he's going to start the season. Slightly different position. We think of right-sided centre-back.
Still captain, isn't he?
He is still captain, yeah. But I don't think... I mean, what's happened with Villa, with the Tyrone Mings situation, has really made us think that, oh, shit, he's not first choice. But I don't think that Maguire still being captain means that he plays every game. I don't think that's the case. again, you've got Martinez 4.5 as well, who eventually is going to work his way into the team. At West Ham, Craig Dawson, I mentioned it on the pod last week. He's 5.0. I don't know how in the world you would pick him over Zuma. If you're
Zuma's 4.5.
I don't know how you picked Dawson.
Zuma at 4.5 is better than Dawson at 5, and Creswell at 5 is better than Dawson at 5. So there's two options there.
Dawson, in theory, Dawson at 5 million doesn't sound terrible to me, because I would bet that if he plays 38 games, he'll get 4 or 5 goals. Or at least attacking returns from set pieces and stuff. So he might be the sort of one that you'd go, oh, yeah, really short term. Are you paying for a 5.0 defender anyway who's got Man City first day? No. I don't think you are, in all honesty. Zuma's a threat himself, right? I would say Dawson is more of a threat from set pieces than Zuma, but we saw that a couple of years ago at Chelsea, where Zuma got 3 or 4 in like the first 3-4 months of the season when Frank Lampard was in charge. So I don't think you're going to pick Dawson. Matt Target, 5 million. I just think immediately gets eliminated because he's the same price as Kieran Trippier.
Yeah.
I cannot see cannot see how you pick Target above Trippier. The way they attack in any case, Target can tuck round like an extra centre back as well. And Trippier obviously bombs on down the right. You're not picking Matt Target over Trippier.
Trippier takes set pieces, corners, all of it. It's Trippier, mate, all the way.
When the game started, and I spoke on one of the first pods we did about looking for where can I pick my battles. You know, if Chilwell was fit, could I go Chilwell over James? Yeah, you're not gonna pick Target over Trippier.
Never.
I can't see that. So we rule Matt Target out. You already alluded to it, Mark Cucurella. I don't think you can start with him, irrespective of where he's playing. So he's 5 million at Brighton. So if he stays at Brighton, you've got like Lewis Dunk at 4.5, Robert Sanchez 4.5, Tariq Lamptey 4.5. So you wouldn't start with him. Now, obviously, it now looks, at time of recording Tuesday morning, and it is early Tuesday morning, that it looks like he's going to go to Chelsea now, which has flipped from Man City pulling out to Chelsea going in. We don't think Man City are coming back as it stands. We just think at this moment he's going to go and join Chelsea. Now, if he goes to Chelsea and he's 5.0, he's of serious interest. To me, all that's done at the moment is added to the weight of opinion for me of I'm probably not starting with Chelsea, because it might be that he's the one that I want. He can obviously play left-sided centre-back, left wing back.
Yeah, it's interesting what they want to do then, because for me, straight away, affects the James versus Chilwell debate in that I'm like, even more doubts about Chilwell now, maybe because they've got Cucurella coming in, so I definitely would want to favour James. But then I'm like, James playing centre-back. I don't want any of them now.
The probably one after what I said yesterday would be put me off Alonso. Yeah. I did say Alonso probably just 2 weeks anyway. I'd be a little bit more put off by that now. I would imagine.
But again, I mean, if Cucurella was to move, is he going to start the weekend against Everton away? Maybe not.
Not unless it happens very quickly.
But the week after, you could see him by then maybe being integrated.
Well, in any case, Gary Mantle said to us he thinks at the moment back three would probably be Koulibaly, Silva, and Azpilicueta. He now thinks he's going to stay. And stay as captain as well, interestingly. My guess would be that if Cucurella does go to Chelsea, as it looks likely, the first choice setup, I would guess, would be to bring Cucurella into Koulibaly's position and move Koulibaly to the right-hand side of Silva. That would probably be, and that would be, by the way, of course, good news for Reece James. But we don't have the information at the moment. So I don't think you can start with him. Similarly, Diego Carlos looks like he's certainly got favouritism as Aston Villa's first choice centre-back. You've got Ezri Konsa 0.5 cheaper. Looks like he's going to start alongside him. And you've got these two really attacking fullbacks who play like wing-backs in Luka Dean and Matty Cash. Carlos is a threat from set pieces, but he's not going to be the Villa defender you start with.
Agreed.
And similarly, Tom Med, our Brentford correspondent, was obviously quite annoyed about Aaron Hickey coming in at 5 million. Realistically, right now, you're not paying 5 million for a Brentford defensive player when they've got Leicester and Manchester United in the first two. You've got loads of 4.5 million assets there. Do you even want to pay 5.0 for a Brentford defender in any case? What I'd say about Hickey is he's certainly a player that you will enjoy watching, I think, quite early on this season. It's one of the players I'm really looking forward to seeing. But for FPL, no. If you wanted a Brentford defender, you've got Rico Henry on the other side, 0.5 cheaper. And as Tom said on Correspondent Week, Henry's numbers might not be far off Hickey anyway.
Yeah.
So that rules us out a number of players, which I think leaves us with a choice of 12. And I've split these 12 players into two groups, a defensive group of 5 and an attacking group of 7. The reason I've split the defensive group is I think they appeal because of the clubs they play for and their potential to have what people hope for is guaranteed minutes. Those players are Kyle Walker, Cesar Azpilicueta, Eric Dyer, Christian Romero, and Gabriel. Now, I think there's one player we can eliminate immediately from that based on what we've already said, Suj.
What, Walker?
I think Azpilicueta.
I would rule out Walker. I'd rule out Azpilicueta.
I think in Azpilicueta's case, what we've just said is if Cucurella comes in, the way they shift that back three, it's not first choice. Now, he, even at right-sided centre-back and not being the tallest player, does score goals at set pieces and stuff. He honestly does. So he's one that suddenly, if he played every week, further down the line, you might look at it and be interested. And I would guess, by the way, that if Cucurella and Azpilicueta both played the same amount of minutes all season, Azpilicueta would probably outscore him and be more interesting. Yeah, because Azpilicueta will get you a goal from set pieces and stuff. Cucurella won't.
Okay.
That's not to say Cucurella will be a bad pick. I think it'd be a good pick. My point is Azpilicueta is probably not going to play that often at Chelsea. 2,000 minutes last season. I think we can probably expect that to come down this season. Yeah. You said you'd rule Kyle Walker out.
Well, it's dependent on if City buy a left back, which they're in the market to do, we think, because obviously they're interested in Cucurella. Then if they buy somebody that's a starter, you'd think Cancelo might move to right back on occasion. And so then Kyle Walker's minutes I'd be worried about. So when I say Kyle Walker, I'd rule him out. I'd rule him out because I don't know. You could just as easily see City dropping 30 or 40 million on a Spanish or Portuguese left back that we haven't really heard much about, but has been decent and bang, done. And I've already got Cancelo. I'm not starting the season without him. And we talked on yesterday's pod about City being a little bit ropey defensively in the last 10, 12 games. So I don't want to double up. And because of that, I'm ruling Kyle Walker out. It's just a headache further down the road. And if I really wanted to go defensive, there's another player in this list that we'll talk about in a minute that I think is standout for me.
Spoiler, Cancelo's no longer 100% for me.
Fair play. It's expensive, so I don't blame you.
Some of these are very interesting.
Yeah.
I probably will still start with João Cancelo, by the way. Kyle Walker has never topped 150 FPL points, even when he's played nearly every minute of every game. That includes playing the majority of a season at right wing back for Tottenham in the season that we finished second. He had 6 assists that season, 0 goals. This is his best return. I think he got 149, I want to say. 2 assists last season is all he's got. Probably passing the ball to KDB 60 yards from goal or something. Only played in little over half the minutes last season. I think we have to consider as well. What's the situation for Walker if City do nothing? Is Kyle Walker going to play 38 games if City don't buy any players?
30.
He still ain't going to be nowhere near it, is he?
Nah.
They're going to want him in the Champions League. His recovery
Simple
pace and
that.
stuff.
They've just got too many competitions, mate.
They can play John Stones out there.
Yeah.
He's done it before. Similarly, you move Cancelo to right back, who will play more minutes than Walker. That's almost certain in my mind, subject to injury. You can play Aki and Laporte at left back as well when they're fit. So I don't think City have only got 6 defenders. Kyle Walker's going to play every game. No. Plus, the data suggests that even if City keep towards sort of 19, 20 clean sheets, which is around about the sort of benchmark we can expect if they challenge for the title again, which I'm sure they will, then Kyle Walker's still probably not going to top 150 points. For me, it's like, I want the guarantee there it's the same with Ederson. I don't like either as picks, personally. Like, will they tick over and get you 6s and stuff like that? Yeah, sure. Points per game, that said, for Kyle Walker, 4.2 last year is decent. But to take you on to Gabriel, was also 4.2 points per game last season, and we're potentially expecting more. Gabriel got 5 goals last season.
I can see him
0
matching
assists.
that comfortably.
Regular as in we expect him to play majority of the minutes. Now, he has had injury problems, but he played over 3,000 Premier League minutes last season. I would pick Gabriel over Cole Walker, for example, if that had to be the choice. Now, I'm not saying Gabriel's the best choice at Arsenal. We'll come on to Zinchenko. I've included Dyer and Romero in this list, who I would not pick over Doherty, who we'll come on to. But I'm seeing more and more people say, because of the wing-back situation, I do want a Tottenham defensive player. There's a good chance they're going to be the third best defensive team. We've seen the improvement over Conte. Shouldn't I just go and get a 5.0 guaranteed? These guys are. There isn't a doubt that these two will start the season for Tottenham. They're ones as well. I'd look at it and go, are Tottenham still looking for another centre-back? Yes. Will Tottenham get another one? I don't know. But even if they do, are either of these two coming out of the team? My opinion would be no. Right. Certainly not Romero. That is 100%. Romero only played half the minutes last season. Injury interrupted. I think we can expect him to really kick on this season. He's a top player. Dyer should be fairly safe for you as well. I mean, their ownership is basically about the same. Interestingly, Dyer's points per game last season, 3.8 versus Romero's 2.9. One of the factors behind that might be Romero's 8 yellow cards. He's got 8 yellow cards despite playing half the minutes, basically, a little over half. He is...
16 yellow cards in a season.
Can I be honest with you? He might get to the point in the season where he's on like 8 yellow cards and he's running that tightrope where he might get a 2-game ban if he hits 10 yellow cards, and he might calm down. But he is so aggressive in his play, he will get yellow cards. Eric Dyer, how many last year? At a guess, Suj?
I think it's going to be low.
1.
Yeah. I was going to go 0 or 1. So.
Tottenham do have a new set-piece coach in, which is a lot of people have been speaking about, so we can expect the two of these players to be a little bit more of a threat from set-pieces. Eric Dyer may also take
them, innit?
Eric Dyer may also take a few free kicks. Quite annoyingly, Harry Kane, genuinely annoyingly, Harry Kane scored from a free kick in our first friendly, and has decided that he wants to be back on them, and him and Ronaldo do worldies, but get off the free kicks, lads. Honestly. I want Sonny to take them for Tottenham. I mean, most Tottenham fans do, and certainly I would rather Dyer takes them than Kane as well, actually.
It reminds me, when I was at school, this is little, so I would have been like 8 or 9. We had a playground, which was relatively small, like the size of a basketball court, let's say. And there was one kid who was like bigger than everybody else. And we played football at break time, but when it was a goal kick, he used to treat it as a free kick. So every time he got a goal kick, he'd be like, all right, everybody, he would just treat it as a free kick every single time. He used to want to take every single goal kick, free kick, corner, just because it's bigger than everyone else and he had the ability to kick it from one end to the other. You're like, fucking hell. But then the other 25 kids were all just standing the goal. Oh, dear. Yeah, Harry Kane, we don't want him on set pieces.
No, we don't. Or corners. Not that it would be on corners for Tottenham, of course not. Romero or Dyer, if you had to go there, Suj?
Dyer. For me. Dyer.
Yeah, I'm in slight agreement with that.
In fact, the more I'm looking at it, I'm thinking about, I don't want the headache of Romero, mate, to be honest with you.
He will get sent off this season.
I don't need that headache. For that.
He is, by the way, and we'll talk about it tomorrow, he's a super choice for Sky Fantasy.
Yeah,
really
tackle tiers all over it. I've seen him so many Sky drafts, mate, so many. The way I'm deciding how to pick my Sky team this year is just look at everybody else's drafts.
That's a good idea, that. Yeah. Well prepped for tomorrow's extended pod on Sky Fantasy.
Who can I copy?
Romero will definitely be in my Sky team. Yeah. But for this, with slight favouritism for Eric Dyer. I think Romero will have more open play opportunities. I highlighted that Longley Romero example from the weekend against Roma. The goal that Romero scored last year was because he ended up in the penalty area from an open play situation, and Kulusevski took a shot at Brighton that hit him and went in. That's his attacking return. So I think slight favouritism for Dyer. But from them 5, Walker, Azpilicueta, Dyer, Romero, Gabriel, best choice?
Easy for me.
I think as well early on, and I know obviously Mark and Az have highlighted this on Black Box, Palace have a set-piece problem, Leicester have a set-piece problem, then you've got attractive fixtures in Bournemouth and Fulham.
I think that does Gabriel mean that
Gabriel could be I'm not big on it, but I can understand why people are looking at him.
You know, quite often you get a 4.5 that's just slightly better than the 5. in this scenario, Ben White, Tomiyasu, I'd rather go Gabriel for 5 than Ben White or Tomiyasu. Obviously, we know why not start.
He's one. So we looked at say Maguire versus Dalot is like you definitely don't pay for Maguire.
No, but this situation, I would.
You pay the extra.
Yeah, agreed.
And that's why he's still a consideration. I think that if Ben White was 4 or if Gabriel was 5.5, that million difference, you would just make the save it. I do think that the extra for Gabriel would be worth it. That would perhaps change if Saliba did force his way into the team regularly. And of course, if Tomiyasu can stay injury-free, that also makes Gabriel less of appeal. It's one of the things to consider if you are starting with Gabriel or Zinchenko is, am I in a position where in 3 or 4 game weeks' time, I would rather have Tomiyasu sitting there, for example? At the moment, that's difficult to envisage because he's annoying people already, isn't he? It looks like he's going to be one of them. He'll be great for 5-6 games injured with his mate Tierney on the other side, actually, as well. He's a very good defender. You're not expecting much from Tomiyasu, but as a fullback, he's got greater chances of getting returns than Ben White.
There are attacking options, though.
Which are far more interesting.
Much more.
Zinchenko, I think we'll mention. We have to mention a lot of people interested by him.
The third highest owned out of the list that you've created.
And that's completely understandable. And one of the things, forgive me, I forget who it was. Have a look through yesterday's tweet Suj, that I sent out in the poll, where someone had responded and said that the reason they thought that this had won the poll was because there was greater interest coming in 5.0 defenders, which is true. It's not that one, so just the original poll. But a lot of that is coming for Zinchenko. And he put a nice little graph, actually, showing... You're not going to find this tweet, are you? It's taking you a while.
I mean, you should tweet less.
It's just retweeting nice things that people say. He'd actually put a nice graph showing who had increased in ownership over the last 7 days. So that, what you've got there, Suj, is the specific price points where there's been more investment. There's a second tweet below it that shows who's gained ownership over the last 7 days. And Zinchenko is the majority of it, basically.
All of it.
So there's 3 players there who've picked up quite a bit of ownership over the last week. Is Zinchenko and who's the other 2?
Kyle Walker.
Yeah.
And Trippier.
And Kieran Trippier. We'll talk about trips, of course. So, yeah, completely understandable that people were excited by Zinchenko. He would, for example, if he was going to play every week at Man City, I think would be more interesting than Kyle Walker. That said, how many Premier League goals Zinchenko scored in his career?
3.
Lower.
2.
Lower.
He hasn't scored yet.
None. No. I don't know why I shook my head. That was terrible for the audio. 0. Alexander Zinchenko is yet to score a Premier League goal. I don't know the number of appearances, but I'm going to presume it's in probably excess of 100. I don't think you'll get to Kenny Cunningham's record, but did you get that one? Kenny Cunningham on the quiz? You can't even remember the question.
Oh, who'd played the most Premier League appearances without scoring? The guys were guessing like Tony Hibbert, and I mean, truth be told, I had no clue where to go with it, and I thought the guesses that the guys all put were decent.
Good. Yeah,
but I was like miles out from that, mate. No chance.
There's one for the pub chat. Yeah, Kenny Cunningham. Is the player with the most Premier League appearances of outfield players never to score in the Premier League.
How many has he got? Like 300-400, man.
It's like 350 or something. Yeah, it's a crazy number. Anyway, I don't think that should necessarily definitely put us off Zinchenko. One of the things people really want to know at the moment is, where's he going to play? Because you presume if he is going to play in centre midfield, that's got to end. But I'd mentioned to you yesterday, I think, on our Patreon pod about, like, will he get more points than Zinchenko? Not Zinchenko, Xhaka. Well, he'd obviously get more points because he's got the clean sheets come with it. But in terms of attacking returns, I don't think he would get more playing as an 8 than what Xhaka will currently get playing that position, in my opinion. So I don't think we should overly look at him for the offensive nature. I wouldn't even be surprised if he gets as many returns from left back as he does from midfield, to be totally honest. But of course it appeals. You've got a defender playing OOP, and it could be quite advanced in a midfield position that obviously he normally plays for Ukraine, so it's not alien for him. Where we'd sit on it, I think, is he's probably going to start at left back. Once Kieran Tierney is ready, Zinchenko will move into midfield. That's what we think. Is he 100% nailed, going to play every single game? Nope. Not for me. Is he definitely better than Xhaka? In my opinion, he is better. And he's a better ball player than people will give him credit. could have guaranteed it plays every week once the Europa starts and whatnot's from. Nope. I'm not sure that I'd pick him over Gabriel, actually.
Yeah, it'd be tight.
I think I'd probably prefer Gabriel of the two. Okay. Which is not what the game's suggesting at the moment. Zinchenko's up to 13% ownership. There's only 2 defenders with greater ownership than him. I'd like to speak about Rasmus Christensen briefly. I don't think people are going to start with him, but I don't think there's a reason early on to completely rule him out of your thinking, because I don't think, although there are 4.5 assets at Leeds, none of them are of interest. Meslier you can make a case for, but the centre-backs, Struijk, Llorente, Koch, no interest in them. So I think that means at 5 we can look at him. Many people are aware of this shot number he had in the Champions League. Most shots of any defender in the Champions League last year. 7 goals and 3 assists in Austria's Bundesliga for Red Bull Salzburg, who are admittedly obviously the best team out there at the moment. Means that we shouldn't discount him. I don't think people are starting with him. We see that from the ownership, 0.4% ownership. And do you really want a 5.0 Leeds defender? Probably not. But he is one I really, really stress that people should keep an eye on early on. And they do have good fixtures at the start.
Okay.
So keep an eye on him. So if someone who's a Leeds fan is sitting there and going, do you know what, I've seen enough, I want to start with Christensen, crack on. I'm okay with it. But I think there are 6 others to really think about. Aaron Cresswell I want to start
5,
with.
Isn't it? Looking at your list.
6. 5. Sorry, yeah, right, 5.
So
Aaron Cresswell, I've included, Suj. I knew you would pull that face for the benefit of the audio listeners.
Yeah.
Suj looks like he's taking a dump.
Well, depends whether you're glass half full, glass half empty. Didn't start the last friendly at the weekend. Masuaku played out there, but then Masuaku's about to get this 1-year-long loan deal at Besiktas. So now you're like, all right, what's going to happen? Does that mean Ben Johnson gets pushed out there? Is he fit and ready to go? He is a very good option. He's on corners, on free kicks, assists. How many did he get last season? 4?
2 goals, 4 assists.
Not too bad. I think we'll be defensively quite good this year, if I'm honest with you, with the signings. We were Bonner coming back, eventually again. But I don't think it's as good as some of the other
Ged's
options.
probably not going to play before the World Cup.
No, I get that. But we will be better defensively over the course of the season. But Man City first day of the season.
We're looking to choose our player for game week 1, and this is in itself a problem.
Man City game week 1. I wouldn't go near Cresswell, if I'm honest with you.
What I'd say on Cresswell is, and I think like where I said I wouldn't pay for Dawson over Zuma. I think Cresswell versus Zuma is more of a...
Because of the set pieces. And we talked already
debate.
when about the ridiculous number of 6-foot-somethings at West Ham will score some set-piece goals this year. And he will take corners from one side and a lot of the free kicks. So, yeah, but just no, I think you can come back to Cresswell. 4% is quite high on the old ownership, considering Man City first game. I think you can come back to Cresswell.
I think it's because it's just a very consistent and solid choice, to tell you the truth. If he plays every week, he will get that sort of 6-7 attacking returns and stuff. Sure. And then I guess it comes down to what we expect from West Ham defensively, which it is worth saying and giving the caveat that you do have a difficult run of fixtures at the start. But as soon as you get the first one out the way, it obviously starts to look better once you've got City out the way.
We'll be in most of these games, you know.
Kieran Trippier.
Yes.
He's obviously hugely interesting. 17% owned, which is the second highest of these 5.0 defenders currently. 4.7 points per match last season appeals massively. Now, of course, the data on Trippier for last season and his Newcastle appearances is very small. 5 appearances. But in those 5, 2 goals scored, he will be on the majority of the set piece. I don't think he'll take all the corners, but he'll certainly take at least half, I should imagine. And free kicks in around the box, they're going to be his.
Even if Maddison signs.
Well, there is that. Yeah. What happens if James Maddison signs? It's interesting. And Newcastle certainly...
It's left foot, right foot, then you've got a combination. Madison's right foot.
They're both right. So...
Is Trippier right footed? Oh, yeah, he is as well. Right back. Why am I having a brain fart? Yeah. But yeah, I suppose that does cause an issue if Maddison signs. We kind of think it might be on the cards. They've decided they want him. They're going after him.
Trippier has the best opening day fixture, I think. in Forest at home, with respect to them, as Mark Southerns keeps telling us, it's going to take them a little bit of time. Forest at home opening day is a good fixture, but what follows is not great. You've got Brighton away, who we always speak highly of. Admittedly, though, they can dominate and not put the ball in the net, which can appeal. Then they've got City at home. Wolves away, we're not quite sure where we sit with them at the moment. It's an away game. And then they go to Anfield as well. And that run's really off-putting for Trippier. That's not great. And we obviously know they're probably still looking to do business in the transfer window, which means the evolution of the team may change a bit. I do think, by the way, that although Maddison would probably nick some set pieces off for Trippier, he would probably start in that right forward position, which Aaron Lager's obviously saying he's occupying for Leicester. And that would, from open play, would really appeal for Trippier. So
for sure.
You win some and you lose some a little bit, depending on how you want to spin your narrative. But I think he should certainly be in consideration. I'm quite put off by that period of sort of 3 to 5 especially. I think if he's another one where if I was locked into that idea of the really early wild card, I'd want to consider him. But then if that was the case, why wouldn't I just go with one of the Villa boys?
Mm-hmm. Cash or Dean?
Got a preference?
Dean.
Why?
Set pieces, mainly. I think
Yep.
the reason people are going Cash over Dean is because Dean was a troll last year. If you look at it in cold light of day, who's got more attacking threat? Luka Dean being on set pieces, I think just carries more attacking threat. If he's on set pieces, I
think Lee Jackson summed it up really well on Correspondent Week when he said Cash is more likely to score than Luka Dean. And then you hear that, so surely Cash is the better choice. But his argument was that Dean will outscore Cash's goals with assists, was his point. I did have a little look at a comparison of some of the numbers behind them for last season. So Cash, obviously, 7 attacking returns. This is in the Premier League, obviously. 4 goals and 3 assists. For Luka Dean, 4 assists. We have to be cautious when we're looking at Dean's data from all of last season as well. Remember that the first half of it was obviously for Everton. What is interesting, though, is when you look at the XG for the two players. So XG across the season for Matty Cash last year was 2.4 with an XA of 1.9. Dean's XG 1.0, but the XA is up to 3.7. What it means across last season, their expected non-penalty, which the non-penalties, goals and assists, would be 4.4 for Cash, 4.7 for Dean. But then you don't get as much for an assist as you do for a goal. It makes it quite tight. If you drill that into per 90 minutes, XG for Cash 0.07 per game, assists 0.05 per game. Dean at 0.04 XG, 0.14 AXA, which means overall, per 90 minutes, Dean 0.17, Matty Cash 0.12 per game. Interestingly, to fit the others into those numbers on the little data we've got for Trippier, expected goals and assists last season, 0.12, same as Cash. Aaron Cresswell, 0.14, little bit.
Between them.
It's in between them, so it's more than Cash and Trippier. Again, Trippier's data is so small, it's difficult, whereas Matty Cash obviously played all of the season. Do we, for example, think Villa keep more clean sheets than West Ham this season?
Unlikely.
Possibly that. Probably a little bit depends a lot on the 2 new signings, Carlos and Boubacar Kamara playing in front. I threw Kyle Walker into this data as well. Expected goals and assists for Walker per 90 minutes last season, 0.07.
Nothing.
There's one player we haven't mentioned.
Yeah, the doctor.
Matt Doherty, last year, equivalent of basically 9 games of football, 2 goals, 5 assists. Expected goals and assists per 90 minutes last season, 0.44.
So that's 3 or 4 times higher than
it's
the others.
3 times higher than the others.
Yeah. And his ownership is really low.
He's in 1% of teams.
Yeah, really low, because people obviously are worried, will he play? The only reason not to go with Doherty is twofold. Well, there's if you're going to go Perisic and you don't want to double up, that's understandable. And a lot of people won't want to double up on defence. or you're really worried that he's not going to play and you don't want to take a risk on the start of the season. But if you feel he's going to play, then you've got to kind of think of him and Perisic independently as just two attacking fullbacks, and both have the opportunity. It's like Kane and Son. You don't worry about having both, do you? Because they can both return at any time.
So let's, by the way, I've not included Zinchenko's numbers into this because I don't think, although he's going to be more of an offensive player, I don't think it's worth looking at his Manchester City data. We need to see what we see with Arsenal. When you break this down to specific XG and XA, I mean, you can see how clear Doherty is on the XG. So XG per 90 minutes last year, you've got Trippier 5th, 0.03. Dean and Cresswell joint third, 0.04. Matty Cash second, 0.07. Doherty, 0.26. We get more points for a goal here than an assist. It gets better because he tops XA as well. Doherty 0.1A XA per 90 minutes last season. Second on that list is Aaron Cresswell, 0.11. So Doherty last season, best for XG of those attacking fullbacks / wing backs, best for XA per 90 minutes, and you make a case that he's playing for the best defensive team out of them as well. So you've got the added potential with the clean sheets. Now, of course, there'll be people screaming, yeah, but James, is he going to start? And yeah, in comparison to the others, this is a problem because Trippier will start, Cash will start, Dean will start, Walker will start, Zinchenko will probably start, all of them. This is actually, when you drill into the data, I feel, is the only reason not to go for Doherty.
Oh, you don't want to double up?
Except there's one more reason not to go for him, which I looked at last night because Doherty at 5 million is a brilliant price. But as I said yesterday, I would pay the extra 0.5 for Perisic. But I thought, hang on, let's look at this. Those numbers are so great. Is it worth looking at making a 2 million saving on João Cancelo, for example, and using that 2 million up at somewhere else? And my conclusion was actually probably yes, which is a big call. Then you're putting that 2 million Rashford. I looked at it, say Rashford to Jared Bowen, for example. And then you're going, oh, wow. There's one major problem I looked at was a problem. And this won't be a problem for everybody, but it is a problem for me. I'm going with Sonny. Mm-hmm. If I go with Sonny, I go for Perisic and I go for Doherty as my Tottenham 3. Nothing wrong with that. Great.
Are you going to get Kane or Kulu?
Kulu, not so much of a problem. But if Haaland gets injured, I'm booking myself into keeping Haaland, and which isn't the worst thing either. But if he gets injured, I can't go to Kane, which means I need to restructure my squad. So I think the conclusion for me would be, ironically, if you're going with Mo Salah, go with Doherty. I would honestly strongly consider going with Doherty and Perisic at this stage. But it probably doesn't work if you're going with Son or Kane. That's how I feel. And I would pay the extra for Perisic, which means I'm probably not going to go with Doherty. And I think as well, look, if you're judging it really short term, again, Cash, Dean and Trippier, I would make the case are all better first two options than Doherty because of the fixtures. Newcastle got Forest and Brighton, Villa got Bournemouth and Everton. Obviously, Tottenham go to Chelsea in game week 2. And as I've said a number of times, I don't think there's a guarantee he plays. But I think he might be worth putting up with the problem of the few one-pointers being in there because he'll outscore the others overall. That's the point. So I think if you're looking longer term here at sort of 8 weeks or so, at the moment, I'd probably stick him in. I think he starts. That could be wrong. And of course, if it's wrong, you've got great escapes. So I think it's just more a case of making sure you don't block yourself with the Tottenham players. Otherwise, for me, Doherty, on the data. The only caveat to the data, I would say, is a lot of the obviously good returns were in good fixtures, like Everton at home, Leeds away, things like that. Man United away, 1 pointer, for example, lost 3-2. But Tottenham only have one of those fixtures really at start. It's Chelsea. You can put West Ham, obviously, game week 5 as quite a difficult fixture as well. But there are fixtures like Southampton at home, Forest away, Fulham at home in the first 6, where he can have them explosions, can't he? He is the best wing-back at Tottenham in terms of his in behind running. I spoke about it in more detail yesterday. It's the less time he spent on the ball, the more of a threat he is. He is really good on the back post in terms of his running over the top. And I think if it works for your squad, he's the best call.
Good.
But do you want to go double Tottenham defensive?
Well, people will be discussing that. You are discussing a bit more about Spurs with late riser tonight, Pranil.
Yep.
On the Wire channel. Do you want to get a quick plug?
You just
I just did. FPL Wire. Subscribe to them. James is going to be cheating on me with Pranil, but I'm really looking forward to it. I don't know if it's live or recorded and published. I'm not sure.
I think it's going to be recorded, but I don't know that 100% certain.
Whether or not it's a stream, but it will be going out at some point on their channel. So if you want more of an in-depth chat again on Spurs, that will be on the way as well.
If you had to go with one now, who would you go
Trippier.
with? Still Trips. Yeah, and that's okay.
Yeah, I like the steadiness of that. So.
I think Cash v Dean is more about how do you interpret what you want. I would want to go for the player that I think's got the bigger upside in terms of goals. So personally, I'd want to go with Cash, but I completely understand people wanting to make the choice with Luca Dean. I think in terms of where they're at in the start, in terms of the opponents they're coming up against, it's difficult to read if there would be a bias towards Villa will have more chances left or right versus Bournemouth. I don't think there's a point looking at their data from last year because they'll obviously dominated most of the games, whereas this year they won't. Everton, it's difficult to say again because Patterson, we don't really know at this stage if he will be exposed as a wing back, as we assume he's going to play there. So I wouldn't even go, because someone did ask me, I wouldn't even go down the route of looking at left side bias versus right side bias of the opposition because it's new. Yeah. I wouldn't look at it.
We shall see. Tomorrow, James, we're talking about Sky Fantasy Football.
Yes.
And we're looking at teams and players and getting right into the detail of it. So make sure you're subscribed if you're looking forward to a bit of SkyFF this year. Thursday live stream coming up with James. Can't get your questions in yet, but you'll want to get your questions in for that. And on Friday, a deadline and all of that jazz is on the way. And of course, we'll be revealing our teams or final drafts, barring any late team news, which could be quite important for me with Allison. So make sure you're subscribed. For anybody that hasn't seen the request to join our Patreon or the offers to join our Patreon, you might want to get more content by heading over to patreon.com/Planet FPL. Start of the month, perfect time to do it.
Nico clipped the video out.
Yeah, I saw.
Have you seen it? Did you see the small print he put?
I tried to zoom in and I didn't actually end up reading it.
You've got to pause it at the end.
I tried and I'm going to check
he
out. He
basically says that you have to join Patreon because his job's on the line.
He ain't lying.
Also, for those who only saw it on Twitter, nobody believes I did that in one take, but the YouTube video for the podcast proves that it was done in one take.
Listeners, we love you and thank you so much for your support. Happy FPLing and we'll be back at you tomorrow. Stay safe. Ciao for now.
Thanks, everyone. Play it your way. Pick who you want. Cue music, please, man child.
He ain't lying.